People tell you it's darkest before the dawn. This week is the moment right after that. If you have spent the last year saying, wait, this is a 1 year, where's my fresh start? And at points it's made you feel a little abandoned, whether it be by your fire horses or just by the universe, then this week you start to walk back into the path that's going to take you to the place you want to be and need to be. Welcome into the Energy Update. I'm Daisy Mack. This is Spiritual Mixtape. And this is the Energy Update for the 3rd through to the 9th of August 2026. And I have jokingly, not jokingly, called this week's update, Welcome Back from the Dead. And I smile ear to ear while saying it because we love things that are a little tongue in cheek. And it's really important to laugh at ourselves and to laugh at the craziness of the situation because this week is a little intense. I think that the whole of August is intense, but I've thought that for the whole year. It's a different level of intensity this month than we had in July. It's becoming quite specific and pinpointed, and you're really beginning to see what you need to leave behind, what you are still carrying around, even though we are far from getting off the train. We're not quite at the destination yet, and I feel like everything is kind of backwards right now. I said a few episodes ago that I didn't appreciate the fear-mongering that you get online, especially around these energy updates, astrology, especially over the things that are actually great, things that we should be excited about. And instead you've got people saying, this is really a time for you to be really scared. No. And what you're going to find this week is everyone's going to tell you how absolutely great and wonderful it is to be manifesting on the Lion's Gate. And they don't even know what the Lion's Gate actually is. They're talking about an 8-8 portal, which actually is really wonderful this year. But the Lion's Gate itself has a very different and quite difficult job this year as it supports our weakened Leo. Leo is in the South Node. This is the place that he wants to leave behind. And if you have an extroverted friend out there, when they are in the blues, they're really in the blues. And that's what Leo's going to be like. And that doesn't mean to be scared. You should never be scared of these energies that are confronting. They are often the ones that bring around the most positive change for you. That's what this is about. And I hope in this podcast, you see what I'm excited about because Sirius is back. She's back. And for us in SoCal, she actually is back on the 8-8 portal. I say also that I'm really proud of the written update, and I am. If you have time, read the written update. It also has a beautiful ritual, which involves getting up early in the morning. I'm not a morning person, but I am not missing Sirius. And if you really resonate with the idea that it's darkest before the dawn and it hits you emotionally when you think about what it feels to feel that first light. Oh God, I'm getting emotional again. Because despite how far along we are on our journeys, on our healing, on our personal development, we're never ever that far away from the first time you feel yourself fully healed, where you really see your hard work come to light. Because for such a long time when you're on this journey, you have to believe you're doing the right thing because you're not seeing the results. I'm not saying that this week is suddenly paved with gold, that the leprechauns are just there every time you wake up. That's not what this is about. This is about something on the inside that is permanently changed, that is once in a lifetime. I don't talk about that on the pod, but I do talk about it in the written. So if you have time and room this week, do both. Listen, bookmark, keep it. This is something that energetically is going to talk to you for 18 months. And same with the written. I'm so grateful that you're here. If you enjoy this podcast, I'm going to ask you to like it, comment, be part of the conversation. So this week, we need to talk about the framing of it all, because these two big energies, the traditional Lionsgate, which is no more this year, still there, but not working as we know it, despite what everyone says to you. The people on here, whether it's a podcast, whether it's YouTube, who are pushing the traditional Lionsgate to you, often have a product that they're selling that supports the traditional viewpoint of manifesting. That is why you have to take what you hear and read online with a pinch of salt and only take what resonates with you. Because this is similar to what I was saying a few weeks ago about who I trusted as a creator. And I mentioned Molly McCord, and lots of you resonated with that. When you are watching a video and it's particularly negative or particularly fearful, because we're human and we have a negative bias, we stay there for longer. That is sort of what's happening, but in the opposite way with the Lionsgate. We're being told, hey, this is the most important time. If you miss it, you're missing out. And here is my product and it's going to make you feel better. I'm going to explain to you why Lionsgate isn't working the way it usually does and won't work like it for the next 3 years. And I'm going to explain to you why that's good for us and what we can do about it instead. Because I don't believe that we should ever operate from a place of fear just because that's how we are programmed. We are sovereign and full of light, and we can learn different ways. And when we lead with love, it's always a bigger impact than when we lead with fear. Perhaps not financially, but in terms of how the world comes back to you and all of the good karma that you create, I really believe in that. But before we get to talking about the Lionsgate, there are two things I have to do first. I have to talk to you about Chiron Retrograde, which is really important to this particular Lionsgate. But also, I have to frame it all. And I want to talk to you about the eclipses that are coming up. So in August, we have the first of the Leo and Pisces eclipse. The Pisces eclipse at the end of the month. Let me tell you the exact date. Thursday the 27th. I'm actually going to take off the rest of that week, the end of that week, because it will be a really, really big energy that I just want to frankly enjoy. I don't want to work through it. And I know that for a lot of us, we can't just take days off. I understand this, but what you can do is you can do your heavier work before and do your easier work across those days to plan for how it's going to make you feel. Pisces will be more emotional. It will feel more tiring, more sleepy, more draining. The Leo eclipse is going to be, well, we'll talk about it, but it's going to be a lot. And really, it shouldn't be, because what should happen is that we have this Lionsgate, which is very big and bright and brilliant, and we go into this new moon. Technically, that's what the eclipse will be. It'll be a new moon in Leo. But this year, it's not going to be like that, because Leo is in his south node. This is a place that Leo is leaving. An eclipse cycle lasts 19 years, takes 19 years to get back to the first one. So we were at this eclipse point 19 years ago. So it's always really good to look back at what was happening for you in 2008. I'm also going to bring up 2007 here, because that is when the first Pisces eclipse was happening. And these two talk to each other. They're in conversation. I've had two pieces of trauma in my life. And the first one happened 2 days after the Pisces eclipse. The stories that are finishing up for me in this moment are even bigger than I thought or understood that they were going to be, based on what's happening with Chiron and Aries. Next week, I will start to give you more dates that you can look into. But I just want to talk about the eclipses as they frame what's happening this week, and as this week frames what's happening with them, everything in conversation. The South Node, which is where the eclipse is sitting, It isn't a planet or a place. It is a part of the moon's orbit. And the south node is considered what we are leaving behind, and the north node is what we are moving towards. The north node, think of this like your North Star. Leo is sitting on the south node. So Leo, our most extroverted character in the zodiac, is in the place that he wants to leave behind, the things he doesn't like about himself. And this isn't a traditional reading of Leo, but for me, what I feel is he feels shame about how he's acted in the past. So how this works for you and I is we feel shame about who we've been in the last 19 years, or how we have sought external validation, what we want to shake off and not bring again. That's what these 3 eclipses in part are talking to, because they talk to the shadow of Leo that you're leaving behind. You're also walking towards good parts of Leo, and you're also walking towards great parts of Pisces. But first of all, you have to be very, very, very sure of what you're leaving behind. And that, for me, is probably the first time this year that it's making sense why this hasn't felt like a 1 year. I have been sitting around being like, why isn't this the fresh start? I'm doing all the things. And this is actually quite relentless in all the ways in which it's showing me I still need to release, or the ways in which I'm dealing with admin that if I was in my highest timeline, I wouldn't need to deal with. But it's also true. Well, I believe this is working. For me, for you. And I'm not just saying that to be positive while we're on camera. I'm saying it because when I do look back over the last 19 years, and then I bring in the Chiron retrograde, which we're going to talk about in a moment, and who I was publicly and how much external validation was needed for me to survive. But that also is why this Lion's Gate, this big manifesting window, isn't going to work in the ways that it would in the other 18 or 17 and a half years that will be in this particular cycle. Because what you want doesn't matter. What you need matters to this cycle. And we're not always committed to what we need. We're committed to what we want. And if what we want is part of an outdated you, it's going to be tough, not impossible. Now let's talk about the Chiron retrograde, and let's set this all up so that we can work with these 2 big energies this week, and we can feel into what's happening with these question mark eclipses. I want to also say, don't be scared of any of this. Everyone who's found their way here and has listened this far, you are people that are doing the work. You are also people that have light, that you are embodying more light. And that is probably your biggest struggle that you don't understand, is that you need to embody more of this light and glow brighter. We probably don't lean enough into our Leo, that now we're all in the same basket of being like, oh, well, now Leo can't shine for us. What do we do here? How do we find the validation? Chiron retrograde happens every year, and it's almost half of the year. It's about 5 months. And when we're in Chiron retrograde, it's very private, it's very reflective, and I like to think of it as quite tender, quite considered. I enjoy a Chiron retrograde. I was born in a Chiron retrograde. All of us here, probably not far off, are approaching our Chiron return, or are in our Chiron return, or beginning to be interested in what a Chiron return means and can see it coming. We've probably lived through our first Saturn return. A Chiron retrograde allows us to embody the lessons that we have been learning over the first 7 months of the year before we hit that retrograde. And in terms of the cycle we've been in with Aries, Chiron, who is the archetype of the wounded healer, this is managing the wound that can never heal. This is seeing your wound of worth, but trusting yourself beyond the fact that you don't feel particularly worthy in situations, but still asking for what you know you deserve, even though it's still not completely embodied. That's what Chiron in Aries feels like, and what Chiron is moving towards, which is Taurus, is going to be the wound of neglect. How we make our money in the world and how we sometimes neglect our needs. And it's really unusual for us to experience Chiron retrograde right now while he is telling two different stories. He is telling the story of the end of your wound of worth, and he is telling the beginning of the wound of neglect, the wound of how we make money in the world. That begins on Monday. That begins on the 3rd. It runs until the 6th of January next year, and we'll be moving back into the Aries story September 17th until April 14th. That's really when that Aries story is going to wrap up, and we're experiencing it from the retrograde point of view. So a retrograde is always the quiet reflection back, the embodiment piece, the lessons you learn. And we know this from Mercury retrograde. But the difference between a Mercury retrograde and a Chiron retrograde is that you don't have the shaking, the plans being cancelled, the things breaking. It's gentle. It's actually probably more gentle than the learning period of a Chiron cycle where he's moving direct. But how this fits in to what's happening with the eclipses and what's happening with the Lionsgate and what's happening with our weakened Leo is Chiron retrograde is asking you about your patterns, where you are still choosing the old. And we are doing these stories to death this year. We really, really are. We have talked so much about the karma that you create by still choosing the old. And here it is again. And this story is not going away until April next year. But you have a blessing here with Leo on the South Node. The only time in 19 years where this will happen, where you get to say with Leo, okay, I'm done with that external validation. I'm done with my ego. I'm ready. And if you read the written version of this update, which I hope that you do, I would say I'm actually really proud of the written piece this week. It lives in my private but free community. And there's also an amazing ritual in there as well, which I'll tell you a little bit about. But I'm very proud of the written this week. Since the operation, I haven't always been able to show up for both the pod and the written and say that they're both of a quality I'm proud of. But this week I am. And I have told you in previous episodes that this is actually a beginning of a period where we are saying, oh, I'm proud of that. And I'm going to charge for my light. And you've just witnessed me doing it to you there. So I say in the written update, I compare this to the Odyssey, which of course is Homer's epic poem, but it's been fictionalized again this summer by Christopher Nolan in a movie. We see that Odysseus is moving home after war. He's a war hero and he is trying to get home. And the film primarily is about this journey, the Odyssey. It's an odyssey, how he gets home and he meets monsters and creatures. And it's sort of meant to be loosely based on what happened in the Trojan War. But as time goes on, this fictionalized version of it in the poem has monsters and cyclopses, and it's a good watch. But the thing that I think is really interesting for us and for anyone that likes Joseph Campbell is this is our hero's journey. And the thing that happens to Sirius at the end of the poem, as he comes to claim his throne, he has to return as a beggar. He has to remove all of his ego and come back in disguise because his lands have changed. In the time that he has been journeying, you come back and you can't just walk in. You have to learn the new rules of this new land and you have to be humble. You can't come back in and expect to claim. And while I don't think that this is us, because as difficult as the last few years have been for me, I haven't had to battle many a cyclops yet or been banished at sea by the sea gods for 7 years, even if some days felt like that. But I do think that this is where we come to the Lion's Gate. Now, the Lion's Gate is going to be popularized this week, and people are going to say, Oh, you can manifest. This is a mess of merging of different special events that happen at this time of year because, yes, this time of year is a natural high point. What's actually happening here is a few things. Yes, we have the 8-8 portal. It's a magic number. It's the infinity symbol. You also have Leo at 15 degrees. You also have the halfway point between the solstice and the equinox, a natural gateway, a lion's gate. You also have, and this is probably where the lion's gate of it all came from, Sirius returning to the sky. So Sirius has been underground she's been in the underworld looking for her love for 70 days. She disappeared. Our brightest star in the sky was no longer visible. When she returns to the sky, usually, if you're in Egypt, around the 5th of August, for us here in SoCal, it's actually on the 7th of the 8th. And if you're further north, say you're in Boston or you're in the UK, so Boston, it's about the 13th of August. And the further north you get, the later or the further away it gets from that 8-8 portal. There is a window of time that you're talking about. And it's special, no matter where you are, no matter what time it is. And this is the reason why it's special. Sirius becomes visible about 30 minutes before the dawn. And when dawn comes, when the sun fully rises, Sirius becomes invisible in the sun's rays. But in that moment where you see her again, that is the time. If you've had a dark night of the soul and people have ever said to you, it's darkest before the dawn, this is the moment after that. And just saying that to you makes me feel tearful because if you've lived through something really, really hard and you first see that, your metaphorical first sighting of Sirius again, nothing can restore your faith more than that. Your first time you're seeing Sirius in the sky again. Because it happens to all of us, whether you've had a very long dark night of the soul, multiple dark nights of the soul, or whether you've been really lucky in life and that you've only had a bad week or a bad fortnight or whatever it is a human principle to understand that, to feel so down and so lost. And then there she is. And while Leo is stuck on the South Node, it's going to be a year and a half. It's going to be a journey into finding who you are without the validation and the things that you can do really well when you no longer need it. And all of that to say, you should still manifest. This is still a special time. The harvest will come. But I always believe that we should be manifesting every day. I should be saying to my highest timeline every day, hello, how you doing? What's up? What am I creating? And that isn't about taking yourself out of the present moment and not being grateful for what you have right now. But it's about knowing that you are progress over perfection. And as an ex-perfectionist, I can't tell you how good that feels. Progress over perfection. My best friend Johnny says that. I hope he's listening. What I would say instead that you should do this week, rather than concentrating on the me of it all and what the want is rather than the needs, it's so impossible for us to see our needs when we are deep in old programming. And even if we've done a ton of work, when we are triggered, old programming happens. I keep talking about my health insurance because it's such a big storyline for me right now. This morning when I was on the most annoying call, I could feel old me, old programming, old ways in which I want people to deal with me. And I said at the end of the call, please, mate, I hang up. And I never would have done that 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 19 years ago. Absolutely would not have said that 19 years ago if I'd been dealing with a similar problem. My old programming is still there, but I am choosing to overwrite it. That is what this week is about. Why hasn't this fresh start that I was promised manifested yet? Could it be because I'm still asking for things that the old me wanted? Oh God, I know that that's right, because I just felt that so deeply in my body. Even though I wrote it, it's on my notes. What can I tell you? Well, we're in it together. I feel it too. And the astrology is taking us out of this. We've known for a long time the end of this decade was going to be full of highs. And despite doing the work, we were still going to be dragging some, I don't know, emotional weight or old stories, old programming around with us. And I think what's happening is that we aren't in a place where we can put it down yet. That we simply can't. It's a bit like, fly tipping. Is that what you call it? Where you dump stuff out of your car wherever you fancy. You can't do that. And maybe that's what's happening here. So like I say in the written version of the update, sit on the shore and watch Sirius rise in the sky and just be for a moment. Be the observer of what's happening, because soon enough we'll be in action again. And soon enough you'll need all that energy. So just sit on the shore and watch this star glitter just for you. Thank you so much for being part of this podcast. For me to do what I do and make the podcast for free and make the community for free and make the breathworks, quite a lot of them, for free, I could really use your support in the community and to spread the word. So if you have time to make a free account and you can leave nice comments in the free community, I'd be really grateful. If you don't have time and space for that, please just heart the video if you're on YouTube. Leave a little comment, it really helps. Next Saturday as well, I'm doing a free Lionsgate sound bath with a tiny bit of breathwork, because we must always have breathwork in my free community. The retreat in Costa Rica has 2 more spaces, and I think that's it. If you would like to come and join me, I'm teaching 3 times this week in LA as well. All right, that's it. Well, however you choose to spend Lionsgate, enjoy, and I can't wait to see you next week.